So finance clauses are something that come up quite a lot in our line of work, and that's basically a condition in the purchasing contract that allows the buyer to pull out of the contract if they're unable to obtain finance. Typically, this is a 2-week finance clause, which basically means from the date of signing the contract, the buyer has 2 weeks to organize their finance. So what happens if you're unable to organize the finance within that 2-week period? Now, in most situations, the finance is approved well within that 2-week period, but there are exceptions. Sometimes there can be delays with the banks. Sometimes there can be some complications. There can be delays with valuation. So it does happen that we get to the end of that 2-week period and the finance isn't approved. So what are your options? So effectively speaking, the first plan of attack is to request an extension to the finance clause from the vendor. Now, my usual advice on this, the official way to do it is to have your solicitor request from their solicitor an extension. My recommendation is normally to talk to the real estate agent first. The real estate agent is motivated to make the sale. Once the sale is done, the real estate agent is now somewhat on your side because they also want the deal to go ahead. So if you speak to the real estate agent and you explain, look, there's been a slight delay on the finance, I need a couple of extra days, the agent will then generally talk to the vendor and tell the vendor, hey, look, it's close, we need a couple extra days to get the finance, which means when your solicitor reaches out to their solicitor to ask the vendor for the extension, they've already been warmed up by the real estate agent and you're much more likely to have this finance clause extended. So plan A, get the finance clause extended. If you can't get this extended, the vendor refuses, you've effectively got two options. One is you pull out of the contract, you're unable to obtain finance at the correct time, your solicitor reaches out and says, we're unable to obtain finance, we can't complete the contract at the end. Or effectively you decide, do you want to take on the risk of going ahead with an unconditional purchase without your finance organized? Now, this is where you'll speak with your broker or your bank and really get an understanding of what your risk is. For some clients, I would tell them, you absolutely cannot do this. The risk is too high. But in other instances, we know that it's just a logistical error or a logistical delay, and we know the finance is going to be approved, and we know we've got backup plans on backup plans on backup plans if the finance wasn't approved. And in those instances, I'm often quite happy telling the client to proceed to unconditional, even if the finance hasn't yet been approved. But it really depends client by client, and this is something you'd really want to have a good conversation with your broker with. And if you're in any doubt whatsoever, you would want to make sure you get that finance clause extension and not go unconditional unless you're 100% certain.